Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to yet another edition of Tough Talking Thursday. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition of Tough Talking Thursday, we're going to be looking at some trending national issues. Number one, why is the Weah administration struggling to get Washington's attention? Dual citizenship bill has been passed by both houses. Another 30,000 USD for lawmakers and others. Tonight in Tough Talking Thursday, I have with me FOL Governance and Planning Consultant, Mr. Ahmed Salif, who is joining us from the Twin Cities. Ahmed, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm happy to be here. Let's do it.
Also have joining us from Pennsylvania, we have Mr. Kalebo Gonglo. Kalebo, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. My pleasure, Dennis.
We will be joined by Mr. Wilmot Wetikuni, our chief political analyst, and also our public policy analyst, Carl Famule. They are on their way. They will be joining us shortly. We want to welcome all our viewers across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia, Tough Talking Thursday, where we don't go around any Tabata issue. We are here to discuss the issue, and I also want to point out that education is at the core of the programming here at Focus on Liberia. So we always want to provide some education, even though as we debate and discuss national issues, we want to make sure that you are on the same page with us. So my first question here we are asking is, why is it that the Weah administration is struggling to get Washington's attention? This is in the wake of new reports that another lobbying efforts have been mounted by the government of Liberia to get lobbyists here in the United States. We want to know if the Weah government, if there's some foreign policy agenda when it comes to how we relate to the United States. So let me start by asking this question, Mr. Salif, I want you to go first. What really is the purpose of lobbying? Do people lobby because the government's struggling, or is it something that all governments do? Why? Why do people pay for lobbyists, and it's so much amount of money?
Thank you, Dennis. Yes, lobbying costs a lot of money, and lobbying is it's a thing that's done all over the world. Here in the United States, you have all kinds of forms of ways of engaging. In fact, it's a constitutional matter that the citizens will petition that government, that the citizen will engage with their legislators and their government so that they may be heard. Lobbying can be expanded into that. You have different kinds of lobbying. You have grassroots lobbying, for example, where you have constituents calling their elected official, or or maybe visiting the capital to make the concerns in the constituency known. Maybe there's a particular issue that constituents want to put on some kind of ballot initiative, or they want Congress, or in our case in Liberia, the national legislature, the government to pass. So yeah, you have domestic, inside the particular country. You have, like I said, grassroots, social, and then you have very organized lobbying as a profession. In the particular lobbying that you've brought us here to talk about, borders on foreign relations and diplomacy, and a foreign government wanting to engage with another foreign government. A lot of time you see these, and first of all, before I get to how and why, yes, lobbying, like I said, happens domestically, but also various other governments, foreign governments and foreign actors, non-governmental organizations and governments mostly lobby powerful governments, particularly the United States, for various reasons. We can go into some of those reasons later. You lobby sometimes to call attention to Washington, in this case, to do a particular thing. Or not to do a particular thing. And that happens to enhance diplomacy, or when diplomacy has failed, when the foreign relations between the two countries suffered some setback. for example. And what we see historically, at least we read in international relations literature and in diplomacy literature, what we see in the literature is uh, Washington has to have something that you want, that it wants from you, because it's all about national strategic interest. So, what is the national strategic interest that Washington, the United States, wants to pursue that Liberia could help with, Liberia could help advance, or Liberia could be used for? If you don't have that, then you have a problem. And so in country, in your particular country, if you don't have a very strong attraction in terms of national strategic interest that the US wants to engage you with, and then you have to be governing very well. You have to engage with the diplomatic mission, because their political and economic section is taking note, they're paying attention, they know every single thing that's going on in the country. And so they can be your chief lobbyist in a way, just through bilateral relations, or they can be your worst enemies, because then they will file cables, daily or weekly cables to their capital against your government.
So does it mean that a government will lobby, like in the case of Liberia lobbying the United States, will lobby when the government is struggling, or if the government has a very thriving economy, things are going well? What does lobbying indicate in the case Liberia lobbying the United States?
You don't lobby necessarily because you are struggling. First of all, it depends upon the meaning of struggling in your what context you're talking about. You lobby even when things are good.
Okay.
But you may want to pursue, for example, a particular foreign policy objective, or domestic policy objective, or regional policy objective, that then you lobby the. I'm hearing a lot of feedback coming in. I don't know.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you lobbied in order to address or that particular regional or domestic foreign objective. So, for example,
Thank you.
Ethiopia is lobbying the United States because of the conflict between Ethiopia and Egypt over the dam construction. Kenya is lobbying so that the Biden administration should now stop the trade deals that Kenya has reached with the United States. So that sort of thing can happen. However, you get diplomatic attention if you're doing well. Well, meaning you're governing on all kinds of governance index and indicators. If you're not doing well, you have human rights problems, then you don't get attention. That could trigger your effort to try to gain that attention.
Thank you. Mr. Gonglo, what is, as far as we can remember, what is Liberia's history of lobbying the United States? Because I see that this was done before, but the Weah government lobbying is getting a lot of attention. What's the history, and why is the Weah government lobbying being highlighted in this way?
What this is how much I can say. I believe historically Liberia has always lobbied the United States government for different reasons. I can't speak so much about the Tabata administration or the administration before Tabata, but I believe government in Liberia historically have always lobbied the United States for various reasons. Sometimes probably for reasons that best fit the interests of the ruling class. But under the Doe administration, I still recall in 1987, though the experts from the Treasury Department came to the U.S., came to Liberia actually, to help strengthen the government financial sector. They were at the Ministry of Finance, and I think they spent less than 6 months or close to a year. And the government got angry for some reason. Look, the experts should leave, because they were actually trying to put our government to manage the economy the proper way, not to just increase the domestic debt or foreign debt and what have you. So they asked them to leave, and then Doe mounted this campaign that we're going to pay back your money.
Right. The 17 experts.
Yeah. They told the 17 experts to leave. They came to Liberia as a result of a lobby with the United States government that, hey, we need help. And they came to help the country. At some point, they have to tell them to leave. And the fact is, our government historically has not been that transparent But under the Salif administration, transparency in public service started to kind of increase a little bit. So then the whole issue of lobbying became, open. We started to hear how much maritime money was being spent, through the back door to lobby key, interests in the U.S.
And Mr. Gonglo, to your point, we Liberians also, they were looking, right?
Yeah.
So the website that Liberians will access and see
Yeah,
who's lobbying and what.
Yeah, with the digital technology, it kind of made government open. So now the whole issue of lobbying now is becoming like a household issue, something that any scholar, any researcher can actually get out there and get the information on. But here is what I would say personally. I mean, I've seen what our leaders in Liberia have tried to do, at least in recent time, starting with the Sadi administration, including the current administration. We are paying, astronomical lobbying fee in the United States. Just to firms, to probably individuals. I just don't stomach it. Because if you look at the recent history in Tanzania, a renowned Pan-Africanist, John Magufuli, he actually taught African leaders the best way to lobby. It's just part of human nature. And countries behave the same way because countries are led by human beings. We like to be part of success story. John Magufuli actually tried to teach African leaders, you don't have to go to Western capital to lobby. Do the right thing in your country. Straighten up your governance process. Straighten up your fight against corruption. Serve your people. If you do that, the rest of the world will come to seek your attention. In fact, there's a story of how China even came to Magufuli with $10 billion loan, that we can give you $10 billion loan to build your airport, new train, new railroad, new airport. And he said, no, I don't need that. I can do that with money generated in Tanzania economy. And he did those things. And that's why during his funeral, the eulogy read, the tribute read by the Malawian president, he said, many of the people who taught these things, Africa can be developed without loan from the World Bank or from Western country, they never thought that John Magufuli was an African. And I will say here tonight, those who think that paying $900,000 to lobbyists in Washington, D.C., they should go learn from John Magufuli. They should go talk to some of his cabinet, some of his advisors, to learn from them. How did you get managed that donor countries are rushing to you because they want to be part of your success, and you are not going to them? Magufuli, for record, never even visited the UN. He thought it didn't worth his time. Because those who are behind the United Nations General Assembly, probably Ahmed can speak to that. I understand when African leaders get ready to speak, the hall is empty. Nobody listens to them because they don't worth anything. They have no new ideas to offer. So I think we should go back to study. I would direct African leaders to go to the John Magufuli paradigm. Let's go there. And I will tell President Weah tonight, please send your advisors to Tanzania or invite John Magufuli advisors to Liberia to sit with you. Let them teach you how to lobby the United States. Let them teach you how to, because this guy never rushed to the United States. He was not in rush or going to any Western capital, but they were going to him.
Yeah. So Mr. Salif, we talk about Mr. Gonglo raised an important point. Since the Weah government took power, we were been talking. Many have been saying, "Oh, the president has not come visited the White House. Does he need to? The president has not done this. We have a foreign minister. I mean, it's almost none here. So, but all these things have to be backed by foreign policy agenda.
Absolutely.
Do we really know what is Liberia's foreign policy when it comes to how we deal with the United States and other foreign powers? And is it what is enforcing or pushing us to pay money for lobbying the United States? And we want to welcome our public policy analyst, Mrs. Carl Famler. Carl, welcome to the show.
My pleasure. It's been a long time.
Carl, welcome. Good to have you back here. So I've just been asked a question I'm trying to tackle here. Yes, so there's no Liberian president, given our history, and our historian is here in a very timely arrival here. There's been no Liberian president, successful president, who has governed, or who will govern well. Well, maybe I shouldn't say who will govern well without uh, having a good relationship with the United States. I mean, whether we like it or not, for what it's worth, the U.S. it's been an unequal relationship for sure, but the U.S. The image and their own foreign policy, their own domestic policies have hovered over Liberia for a long period of time. As a result, a Liberian leader, historically we've seen and at least read, does gain legitimacy domestically by how the United States engages with them. In that respect, yes, President Weah needs to be taken seriously. And how you're taken seriously, how do your people in country see, or other foreign partners see it, is, you're invited by the White House, maybe some kind of state dinner. President Sirleaf, I think she had two of those, if not more, and was invited to speak to the joint section of Congress, received a full presidential visit by President George Weah, two first ladies, I believe, very high-ranking U.S. government officials visited during Sirleaf's time. We haven't seen any of that during Mr. Weah's presidency.
Mr. Salih, let me stop you. We have not seen that because they say money talks, right? So what is it that we want? Do we want the president and his team to come here, or they spend their money, lobby, and get the same results?
Yeah, they're spending that money. They've spent more money lobbying, I believe, in the last 3 years, trying to lobby, at least hiring, so-called experts and firms. With the film, we saw that they hired Bakari Scholars, the CNN liberal political analyst, right, to bring some strategic media attention and expose Liberian government officials to high-level U.S. officials. We haven't seen that. Maybe it's happening. We haven't seen the results of that. We saw that when Bakari Salas was hired, I believe around that time, there was a firm that the government of Liberia also hired and paid very huge sums of money to in the millions, if you consider those two. And now just recently, we've seen they've engaged a firm called Ballard. I think prior to that, they engaged the services of the very firm that President Sirleaf, when President Weah came to office newly, had used during her administration, her two terms, terms of the presidency, and somehow that just dropped off the radar. We didn't see any real tangible outcomes in terms of bilateral deliverables between the two countries. We didn't see any high-level engagement. We didn't see a presidential state visit, for example, on either side. And what we've seen is that, some very bad sort of diplomatic optics, coming out of the U.S. Embassy in Monrovia, scolding basically the Liberian government for various practices. Some of you in the media, you're very aware of these. So, it's not just money talk. Money ought to talk strategically. President Sirleaf did it, but when she took over the country, truth be told, Liberia was in tatters, and she needed the international attention. She needed the sort of donor assistance, foreign assistance to come to the country in the way that it did, and she was very successful at that. So we saw that. We're not seeing that with the Weah administration.
Thank you. Carl, let's look at foreign policy or public policy as a whole and lobbying on the other hand. Do they go hand in hand? Do they commensurate each other, or are they opposed to one another? What do we see happening here when it comes to the Weah administration's foreign policy and this lobbying effort?
I don't think that the current administration has a foreign policy that has been articulated.
Okay, that's a good point. They may have it, but it's not being articulated. You're saying.
Right. I'm not aware of their foreign policy position. I haven't heard one being articulated. I haven't actually heard, any kind of ideological vision coming from this administration. It just seems that their only ideology is it's our time. Your time to do what? So understanding the purpose and function of government, I think, is something we need to first ask ourselves. Excuse me. Is what I think they need to first ask themselves, if they understand. I've just been, shocked. We're kind of all over the place. And it seems the foreign policy demonstration has been more one of, trying to position themselves to beg for resources. That's not policy. That's just pathetic. So I don't really see that there's an articulated foreign policy position or even a political ideology. To just, kind of add to what Mr. Sharif said, our relationship with, in most African countries, relationship with world powers since the partitioning of Africa and subsequent independence struggles has been one of a gatekeeper, or almost like the presidents in African countries have been there more in the service of the Western powers than they have been available to the service of their citizens. So our countries aren't really set up to, for the most part, benefit the citizens that live in the country, but more so those who extract resources from the country. So that's just a fact. And so if we try to have this conversation without talking about this really unfortunate truth, we're not going to really be addressing anything. That's the real issue. And so when a man like Weah takes power, doesn't seem to have any interest in really understanding how the world is structured, for whose benefit, and who's benefiting from our poverty, our position of disorder, our position of disorganization. You look at who benefits from it. Those are the same people that we are calling our partners that we need to lobby. I mean, it's absurd. So I don't really see that the level of understanding is even there to begin with. There are presidents in the past.
Exactly, that's where I was coming to. Does Liberia have a history of a foreign policy that goes hand in hand with the lobbying effort? Do we have any template to look at?
So yes, and we have a couple of templates to look at. And whenever our foreign policy position has been structured and such that would benefit our economy for the benefit of our citizens, those presidents have been deposed or murdered, or both, like in the case of Edward James Roy. So whenever you see Liberian leaders positioning themselves to extract our resources for the benefit of the Liberian citizens as opposed to for the benefit of foreign powers, those presidents tend to be the ones who are, historically speaking, are deposed and removed. The presidents that tend to do well are the ones who walk that fine line like Tubman did, right? So Tubman positioned himself in a way where he pandered to these powers because he didn't feel that he had it was even possible within his lifetime to challenge them. So he pandered to them while at the same time exhibiting such competence in the way he executed his role. Though he was a dictator, he was extremely competent in understanding what needed to be done for Liberia to prosper, the level of institutions, raising the standards of institutions so that citizens could be fully educated, not just learn literacy. He advanced the country while still keeping up this kind of pretense of pandering and allowing the Western world to bring their extraction concessions in. For example, the whole Lamco concession and all of those kinds of things occurred under his reign. But it's not as simple as we like to think it is. I mean, this is our foreign policy position is extremely complex. I mean, we are fragile, we are vulnerable, but right now it seems that the leadership doesn't even understand, their assignment. They don't even know what they're supposed to be doing.
Thank you. Mr. Cooney, every time you bring up the issue of the Weah government lobbying the U.S. and spending all this money, one reason is because we know now we never kind of follow these things the way we do now, maybe because of social media and the digital age. But what do you say to people who say, but that we are, you see, Ellen Lobby?
Yeah, before I go there, Dennis, let me give you my general position of lobbying. I'm one of those who is not a fan of lobbying. I mean, I do understand the purpose of it. I do understand why people want to do it. But lobbying at the national level, by especially these poor countries from Africa, I see it as a situation where you have powerful law firm and powerful PR firm, especially in America, that is preying on these countries, receiving huge payment and really giving little in return. My position on that has been that some of the points that Salif Ahmed articulated. I think the best form of lobbying for any government is to do, what you were elected to do. I mean, let your citizens tell the story of the government. I really do not believe in giving these huge sum of money to lawyers in Washington, D.C. that we should put our faith in that will advocate our interests. I've never been for it. I've never been for it when the Salif government did it. I'm not for it when the Weah government is continuing it. I do understand certain times you have to explain your positions, and I think there are other ways that can be done. For example, maybe we can take a page from the Israeli lobby. The Israeli government, they lobby through the Jewish organizations that in the United States that speak more for Israel, that know more about Israel, and be able to present the issues that confront the state of Israel, as opposed to a lawyer who lives in Washington, D.C., perhaps never been to Liberia, knows nothing about Liberia. And we're giving these people all of this money. So my general position is that lobbying is something that, I have a lot of suspicions about. I don't think it helps us a lot. I think it's a predatory form. People prey on poor countries. And if you check the record of lobbying, most of the countries that engage in this thing are the countries really that lack resources. Most of the developing countries in Africa that lack resources. They are the one taking their little resources, like Liberia, and trying to think that people will get, we can meet policy makers that will get in the graces of the country. Then as you live in Atlanta, all of us here, we live in our various states. We have the ability to interact with lawmakers from our state and make those lawmakers interact with representatives of our government. We can do that. And there are many times that we do that and we don't get paid for it. I mean, many times organizations here in the United States, they bring Liberian government officials together with prominent U.S. lawmakers. And it's basically the same thing that the lawyers then do. And they go to lawmakers. Yeah. I mean, I understand it's something that I really don't, it doesn't thrill me, really.
I like that perspective. Take, for instance, if the U.S. government can do that through EULA, is that something you kind of trying to suggest?
Other prominent Liberian organizations, I mean, the other day, for example, look at the EULA inauguration that was held in Philadelphia. There was a forum that was created between, you have Representative Mary Scallon, a powerful representative from the state of Pennsylvania that was sharing stage with Minister Nathaniel McGee. Maybe you could do more work that will create a more meaningful meeting from that arrangement that will make the government position to be heard and other things like that, and the government will be paying little or nothing.
Right. Thank you. Mr. Conclude, let's have our last thing on this topic now. When I was growing up, I used to really wonder about the work of a lawyer. I'm like, the way I understood it, all the way when I was in Dodokan, is okay, people know the lawyers are lying and they still pay them. That's how I understood lawyers, right? It's like, they're going to fix it. So it's the same with lawyers. I mean, with these lobbyists, I mean, their goal is to get the government I remember when Laurent Gbagbo was being pushed, he was holed up in this place, and that's the time he paid the highest amount to lobbyists in the US, and they know that the man was not going to survive. I mean, does this work for Liberia? Does lobbying really work? Does it bring tangible benefits?
Yeah, but Dennis, I Google the other day I just Google a prototype, a general type of lobbyist contract. They actually do say in the contract that it's not a promise, it's not a guarantee. I mean, so you can't actually say to them, you took my money and you didn't get me to have a White House visit. It's not a guarantee. They tell you that they have a role, they have things that they're going to do for you, and you have to do the rest. Your government has to do the rest with their image and performance. You know, I mean, Bakari Sari, I understand part of the thing was to get somebody to appear on CNN or whatever. I don't know whether he achieved that. I know he got tour and others to meet social Republican lawmakers, basically, that have no influence in the White House. But he was paid whatever he was paid. I quite agree with Mr. Coney on this one, at least. I mean, I would just more or less add a little thing to what Cole said earlier about Liberia, particularly how our past leaders who have stood up in some sense have been the one have been killed or deposed from power. But I mean, it's true, but I think I will take that with a little bit of grain of salt on this, not to go for it entirely. Because if I look at the recent history of Tanzania, or if I look at the history of other African leaders who have stood up for their people, I would say in the case of Liberia, it yet to be seen when maybe they stand up for a particular policy that maybe Washington was not happy with, but how were they relating to the ordinary people in Liberia? How were they seen before whatever stand the talk? It's also important. So if you are seeing somebody aloof, somebody not interested in the population, in the welfare of the people, you are corrupt, you're just there for your friends and your cronies, your friends, your family interests, but maybe a particular foreign policy you want to pursue on certain investment because it maybe encroaches on the interest of a member of the ruling class, and you stand up for that, yes, they're going to sacrifice you because it's easy to do that because they know that what you're doing is not in the interest of the ordinary people in the country. It benefits you and probably some of your family members or some people in your cycle. So I think we need to dig a little deeper than that. If Cole is trying to relate our history, that those who have stood up have either been deposed or killed. I need to go a little bit more on that as to what was their performance, their relationship with the ordinary people before whatever stand the talk. But I will go back to my other position that John Makafulu, a renowned Pan-Africanist, actually show African leaders the way to lobby. Do the best thing in your country, like Mr. Coney said. Foreign policy should be reflection of what the current regime wants. If we are ones, ordinary people in Liberia living standard to improve, he should begin to do those things. He should begin to do it. And that will be reflected in how Washington relates or how Brussels relates to him. Simple. You don't need to pay any money.
And just a quick point, Dennis. I want to believe, I've been off and on. Part of the reason why, I have that position about lobbying is, because of, other areas that I work. I mean, I know that information on Liberia is being collected by various operatives of the U.S. in Liberia. From, some working at the State Department, some working at other levels of the U.S.
Exactly.
Those informations are being collected and sent to Washington.
Yeah, Mr. Koenig, I just want to buttress what you're saying, which is, the U.S. intelligence knows more about what's happening in Liberia than the Liberian government intelligence. That's just what it is.
That's true.
And furthermore, what exactly are we lobbying for? What are we lobbying for? What is it that we're lobbying for? What does that even mean? What are
For
we
White
lobbying foreign countries
House
for?
visit. For White House visit.
That was my point. I mean, if you look at
What are we looking at getting from these foreign countries? I mean, I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't understand the objective of the conversation. I came in late.
Very good question you were asking. I just and trying to buttress as well. You have to have. If you look at the history of African countries and African governments lobbying the U.S., at least recent history. When I look at the African report, which I do regularly, you can pinpoint specific things that those countries are lobbying for. Right? In our case, we don't pinpoint anything. All we say, I don't know, we want our president to visit the White House. Okay, that I said that was a thing, but that's not just. That shouldn't be just the objective for which you spend millions and millions of Liberian people's money. You actually have to have a foreign policy objective, which you need attention or you need it fulfilled. So, for example, the Millennium Challenge Corporation, when Liberia didn't qualify under President Weah, maybe that was something you wanted to negotiate around. You lobbied that, right? Maybe there was a particular capital project, I don't know, the electricity or something, some national security question, because our foreign policy historically has always been, the existence of Liberia's place in the international community and so on. And then so you identify that you lobby specifically around a policy position that the U.S. government may take against your own interest, and you don't want that to happen, or that the U.S. is not paying attention to, you want to call their attention to.
Right.
Lobbying objective, the point is here, it shouldn't just be just because our high officials haven't been invited to the White House or to Congress, and we lobby people to gain that attention, to have them come. To what end? I mean, it's a good question. We haven't really.
So the last thing I call comment on this quickly, and then we can move to our next issue is, I think in less than a year now, there have been a lot of U.S. officials kind of criticizing the Liberian government, talking about trash, talking about different donors are saying, hey, where's our money and all these things. So if you look at those things, we see that those things are happening. And as you said earlier, the United States and other countries, they are reporting that. So what will lobbying do? Is it to say, okay, we took your money, we're sorry, or the city is not clean? And so what will lobbying do in that instance? Because the people already know what would be the importance of lobbying. And Carl, as you said earlier, to what end? What is it that we want?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that we're confusing in our country in general, in our society in general, is we think lobbying means begging. We think lobbying means to go and beg for money. And that's really not what that is, right? They think lobbying means to go and beg people for handouts, for donations. That's not why you lobby. You lobby for tourism, you lobby for political support, you lobby for ideological reasons, for allies. So if you go and you put people together, go beg for money and resources, instead of negotiating for fair trade so that your economy can grow, so you don't have to beg people for money, that's not really that. I mean, what kind of objective is that? I was just on one of my history shows, I was talking about the 19th century, where the position Liberia was in was not about really aid as much as it was, trade, respect, so that they could trade, have fair trade, so that their economy could be released to their own control, as opposed to it being looked at as an extraction center for foreign powers. And so it seems like we've just conceded that our resources, everything should be extracted to build the wealth of foreign countries, and then our position should just be to beg those foreign countries who've extracted our wealth for handouts.
Right.
Instead of approaching people as if we're a country, we're approaching people as if it's okay that we are an extraction center, a wealth reserve for your country to build your economy, and we will just beg you for money to pay for things for us. And that is, in the most simple terms, what it seems to look like to me. And that really is the most unfortunate result of miseducation and just sheer, ignorance about what the purpose of a government is or a country is. I mean, we don't even have the esteem anymore, to stand up and say, you know what, we have the right to put our resources to use for the benefit of our citizens first and foremost. And we have a right to negotiate contracts for our resources to be used for the benefits of our citizens first and foremost. And in fact, the purpose of government is to build the wealth of the citizens in the country that they serve. But we've somehow conceded that our purpose is to build the wealth of foreign countries. And we are just now here, our position is just, once they build their wealth, they will give us small thing and we'll be all right. They'll give us small thing, we'll sit down, we'll divide it among ourselves. The people too powerful, we can't fight and just let us steal anything they want to take from us, we accept it. Tomorrow we'll go and say, and we gave you, we built $20 billion in your economy. Can we please have 20 million so we can go give it to our people? I mean, that's what we're doing. Right. That's not lobbying.
You can take the iron ore, you can just give us road.
Yeah, you can do it. I mean, these people are literally building billions and billions of dollars on the backs of resources that belong to Liberian people. And we're then, after we negotiate these ridiculous contracts, these extraction deals that we call investment, that's not investment, that's extraction. And then we turn around and go, we want to do feeding program in our country to feed our children in the school. They're not eating, so y'all please give us small things. What is that?
Thank you, Carl. I hope you're not oversimplifying it now.
I have to break it down, but that's what it is. I mean, let someone contradict me. Let's have it out.
The situation is exactly what Carl is describing.
Right. And so that gives us a good segue to our next issue, which is the lawmakers. They are receiving $30,000 again. Mr. Gonglo, what is it, the $30,000 for again?
Well, I the previous one, they said constituency visitation.
Right.
But there seems not to be one clear reason, because it depends on who the lawmaker you're listening to. The first time the $30,000 issue came up, some people say, we are paying for wedding, we are paying for hospital bill, that was some people's reason. Other reason was that constituency visitation. I think that is the language in the budget. Okay, so but they try to find all sorts of reasons to justify it, as unjustifiable as it is. They try to find reason to justify it. But we must make the point, though, it's not the first time. I think under the Cedi administration, that was even much more higher than that. I have got confirmed information from past lawmakers that under the Cedi administration, senators were getting $68,000 per year, okay? And representatives were getting $45,000 per year. That was consistently given to them. And they didn't have to account for it. And they didn't account for it. Whatever they did with it, if they built a personal houses with it, that was it. If they fix one breach in a community and say, hey, this is Representative Carl Fumbler project, that is what they did, okay? And they took the credit for it. The sense that I make of it is like, we the taxpayers, we the ordinary citizens, we are paying the guys who leave us money to maintain them in power, because we give them money to have unfair advantage over any competitor that may try to unseat them. So these are the breaches I built. These are the list of students I have on scholarship. But it is our money that you put there. It's not your money. You didn't lobby. You didn't have fundraising event to raise his money. You took the money from us actually, and yet decided how you're going to spend it. So it's funny. But what has happened from reliable source, the recent $30,000, the House of Representatives left the term of the $30,000, the description on the budget line, the same as it was in the previous one. So in the recast budget, they maintained that. What the Senate did was, the Senate removed that line budget and put it in an operation fund. So the Senate still received the same money, because I actually took the budget and looked at it. All that happened to the Senate budget was the operation or aspect of the Senate budget increased from previous budget. But what they didn't do was the general template, like
Right.
the first page, which is like the transmitter or whatever, it's like a summary of the budget. It still carried 3.6 million. That means that 30,000 K was still there for both the Senate and the House. So you hear some senators may argue that nothing like that is in the budget, but they are actually receiving $30,000.
Right.
Just
Except that they changed the name of it.
Yeah, they changed the name.
So instead of calling it legislative engagement now, which it is called in the House budget, you can just modify and call it something else.
Yeah, I can add to this because I have a little bit of knowledge on this. I happen to follow this closely at the PPCC, the Public Procurement.
Yeah, and I will come back to you to continue that. Let me hear from Mr. Cooney about this whole thing about 30,000, and the lawmakers are arguing and say, well, it's in the budget. But who put it in the budget? Who approved it? Right? So as long as it is in the budget, it's for us, and that's the money. We deserve it. What's your take, Mr. Cooney?
You know, the monetization of the national legislature is one of the unfortunate legacy of the Salif administration that has, that continue to be promoted. I've said that historically, we can all argue that the Liberian legislature has been subservient to the executive, but it's been for different reasons. It's either because out of fear of the president, like maybe when we have Samuel Doe, you are afraid of presidential power, or out of different reasons. But this whole idea of introducing money, where legislators receive money directly for their legislative work, that is the legacy of the Salif administration, and unfortunately, it's still continuing. We have situations where legislatures were being paid to remove their own speaker. We have situations where legislators were being paid to sign concession agreement. This practice is still continuing. We have situations where legislators were being made to get in their county caucuses to carry on, implement development projects. Mind you, the same legislator will tell you their role is representation, oversight, and legislating. But now you find them in county caucuses where, they have to be the one deciding projects to implement. All of these things are the unfortunate practices of the national legislature. So these
Mr. Cooney, Mr. Cooney,
they are continuing.
Mr. Cooney.
And apparently,
let me finish.
with the legislature, there are some people who believe that the legislature are just small children. We shouldn't even hold them to any account. This legislature is dominated by the opposition. It's dominated by the opposition. And it is the opposition, it is under their gavel that these budgets are being made, where these payments are being made. You understand? And sometimes we don't even hear about it. We thought that the first noise that came on the first 30,000, everybody thought that this 30,000 was removed from the budget.
Thank you.
Until Akaro's great came out and said, no, the thing continue, I just got my own. So it's just unfortunate.
Mr. Cooney, the first branch of government, this is probably one of the worst explanations of Liberian civics I've ever heard from an educated person. And I don't know if you're stating these things for political reasons or if you actually don't know how things work. You cannot hold the executive responsible for the conduct of the legislature.
I'm talking about the president's direct action.
Let me conclude. Dennis cut me off so that you could spew things that were not correct. It doesn't matter what happens if the executive, what should happen if the executive, in fact, does attempt to bribe the first branch of government, is the first branch of government needs to hold the executive branch to account. These are grown, rusty majority men sitting there. And because of misogyny, you want to attribute their bad, treacherous behavior to that of a former president. And then when it comes to Weah, you want to attribute it to opposition instead of attributing it to the treachery of the individuals involved. Everyone that has a seat in the legislature have taken an oath to uphold the Constitution. They haven't taken an oath to the president. They haven't taken an oath to the political party, to being opposition or being ruling party. They've taken an oath to the Liberian Constitution. When they violate that oath, they are responsible for violating that oath. The citizens are the ones who are supposed to make an issue of this. But when opinion leaders like yourself, people that people look up to and respect, make statements like, oh, the executive is responsible. The executive took their hand, put it on the Bible or the Quran, and told them to swear to uphold the Constitution. Was it not their doing?
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, and Mr. Kuni, I want you to really respond to that because
I'm calling the direct action of a certain Liberian president.
Mr. Kuni,
I am talking about the executive being responsible for its conduct. They are being paid. They took an oath to office. They are responsible for the conduct.
You wanted me to wait for you. I waited. I'm talking.
Yeah, but you're not going to sit down here and be misguiding people on the purpose of legislation.
Hold on. Mr. Kuni, let me add to that because you are on record of when Kabina Janet was impeached. You put the blame entirely on the legislature. Now you are saying this particular one, the president is responsible. So I think Cole has a point here.
But the point is, I'm saying it is the president that introduced that. And that no one can argue that this president introduced bribery to removing 2 Liberian speakers. I'm not holding.
Why didn't they impeach her? They have the power to impeach. They should have impeached her. If she did it, why didn't they impeach her? Are they children? Are they not? That's the job.
I'm not holding the president responsible for that. I'm just saying.
Why didn't they impeach her?
Started from that time. So
why didn't they impeach her?
For them to pass law, they got to get money. For them to do the
if the woman in fact took a bribe, why did they not impeach her?
And it's continuing today.
Yeah, Dennis.
People don't want to acknowledge that.
Thank you. Let me bring Mr.
That's kind of impeachment. You don't take the bribe and destroy your country and then say, oh, they made me do it. The devil made me do it. The devil made me do it. I ain't know what I was doing. You took over.
Mr. Salif, what's your take?
Yeah, well, my take is my take is total misrule. It's a misunderstanding of governance. Governance in terms of where legislators believe in that part of their duties is to actually single-handedly engage in development projects in their districts or in their counties, in their constituencies, so that they use that then as a justification for receiving remuneration, like kickbacks for them to do their job, right? Like I was saying, if you have to be somewhat compensated to sign a particular concession agreement or a particular legislative agenda that the executive is pushing, you have to be off budget sometimes, purchased basically. And that has fueled all kinds of things in the society where young people, because they see the legislature as the most lucrative job, in the most lucrative institution to work for in terms of being a lawmaker, because they don't pay everybody wants to become a senator or representative, right? So it's a complete misunderstanding of how you govern and how you rule and what leadership you provide. You get paid, you have compensation package, you have all kinds of benefits and amenities, right? But it's not where you periodically receive huge sums of money in such an economy in the midst of poverty, where majority of the people are suffering and they're poor. They can't even afford a meal. They can't send their children to school. There's floods everywhere in the country, and the people just see the only people who are rich and successful and enjoying themselves are those in those positions in government. I think it's a travesty. It's a misunderstanding of how you govern and how you work as the first branch of government. On top of that, one final thing I will say, which is not in the public glare often, there's an entire agency in Liberia that's dedicated to pork barrel projects for these legislators, where they go and create fake companies and deal to themselves and direct those monies to themselves, to the so-called companies, and divide it among themselves on top of the 30,000. It's called Liberia Agency for Community Engagement, LACE, LACE. Check it out. Every lawmaker in Liberia has a project that is budgeted for under LACE, and no proper procurement happens at LACE. I can be on record to say that. And what happens there is ultra corruption. And so the people are ripping their own people off. It's just, I don't know how we get out of this, how we extricate ourselves. But at all levels, you look at the executive, you think that this is where the problems are. And then you come to the legislature, you forget the executive. How did we get here? Sometimes I don't really have an answer for that.
Exactly.
Thank you. So, Mr. Gongolo, you have the last word here. Let me add to hold on, Mr. Gongolo. Let me add to it. As to this thing going on with Mr. DeLong and Mr. Gray, Mr. DeLong came out and said, and he kind of made fun of the 30,000. What's going on here? Is he saying the truth? DeLong, Gray said, I got my own. DeLong got his own. DeLong said, no, I didn't get anything. What's going on? Is this a joke or what? And then you can add about the people.
Legally, I would say, DeLong is right on one count that there is no, in terms of land item, there is no 30,000 for constituency visitation or engagement in the Senate budget. But it is in the Senate budget.
Isn't that
$30,000 there for the Senate, for senators?
Right.
But it's not spread because if you look at the summary of the budget,
but Mr. Gongolo, isn't that deceptive?
No. So I think there's a technical difference here. One may argue it's a difference without meaning, but there's a technical difference here. In a House of Representatives budget plan, you have 30,000 for constituency engagement. It's there. In the Senate, it's missing. But in the summary of the budget legislature, right? $3.6 million for constituency engagement is there. The only way will reach $3.6 million if the money, the 30,000 is allocated for all 103 or lawmakers, right? So that's the argument Akaras Gray is making. On that logic, Akaras Gray is right. But on the technical side, DeLong is right. Because on the Senate side, there's nothing written as such. But I just wanted to make comment on this comment, the argument between Carr and Wilmot and Mr. Cooney. I think there's one scenario where two things can be right at the same time. I think they are both right on this one. Cooney is right also to blame the Sadi administration. Carr is also right to blame the legislature, but why didn't they act? This one situation. I explain why I say so. If you recall, the first time, I think that money might have been $5,000 or so, something the legislature allocated for themselves. President Sali was visiting the UN General Assembly at the time, and she had a town hall meeting in Staten Island with Liberians. And that issue came up. And she said, oh, I didn't give them that money. They just took it. These men just took the money. They allocated it to themselves. But under our constitution, the president has the right to even institute a land veto. It's not like the United States where the president must veto the entire bill. You can't pick among it. In Liberia, President Salih or President Weah has the right, constitutional right, to even implement a land veto and say, strike this one out of the budget. I can't approve without this being taken out. None of them has done that. Salih didn't do it. Weah is not doing it. So it's a culture of corruption in the presidency, and he has been there. I didn't say it started with Salih in terms of the presidency being corrupt, the institution of the presidency being corrupt. I'm not saying so, but it has been there, and both of them in recent history have failed. Unsurprisingly, because there's probably there is There's something the executive mansion that eats up people, because I campaigned for Salif in 1997. I campaigned for her in 2005 in the trenches. I know some of the things she said to me personally. I know the promises she made, but this show is not for us to go into that. But for her to get to the presidency, and one of the things she said, it was going to be modern day in Liberia education to turn out to be mess. I mean, I was sitting there and saying, am I looking at something else? I was told this in a small room of 6 persons, that our population is small. It's a blessing in disguise. Our resources are plentiful, and we at the end of 6 years, we like to have the story that the best physicists are coming from Liberia. I was told
Thank
this.
you.
I'm not.
Thank you, Mr. Gonglo.
So let me go on this. So I think the 2 statements are correct. The legislature has been historically corrupt. The office of the president has been historically corrupt in Liberia, and just a fact. So the 2 things are right.
Thank you. Just for information, that amount is called legislative engagement and public accessibility. That's how it is in the budget, and it's 3.6 million.
Yeah, it's there.
Legislative
it will
engagement.
only reach 3.6 million if the money is paid to all of them.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Focus on Liberia Tough Talking Thursday, and here we talk tough. I want to read a few comments before I go to the next issue here. And there's one comment here that I think makes sense. This one from Soccer Hut. He said the title of this live is very disturbing. The real question here is, why does the Liberian government need Washington's attention? Or are you telling me that Liberia is a colony of the US? This viewer is asking because the title is, why is the Weah government struggling to get Washington's attention? Mr. Salif, I think the viewer has a point here.
Well, I mean, the viewer has a point because we are a sovereign country. If that, in that respect, that we don't have to go be seeking people's attention
Exactly.
and craving for others' attention. However, I will tell the viewer that, when you talk to international relations students, or students with, knowledge of world politics, there's a thing called international political economy, wherein, you have to participate in the global space. And participating in the global space, people are segmented in alliances, in, geopolitics and so forth. Our geopolitical history is based with the United States. Our history is based with the United States, and that's the history they taught us. That is settling the foundation of Liberia came from the U.S. We can't run from it. So historically, just like the British, former colonial masters, these countries that they had pillaged in the past, look to them for many things, for legacy of some sort, for legitimacy, sometimes in the eyes of their own people, right or wrong. That's just why it is. So to see a Liberian president that is not even able, or at least a government, to be seen by the people to successfully be exercising the foreign policy or diplomacy with the number one counterpart, which should be the United States, is problematic. So people are right to ask the question, why are they struggling? We see indicator of struggle because of all these lobbyists. They're hiring these firms, and we're not seeing a result. And so one can ask the question, why are they struggling? And then one can also ask the question, well, why should it be
seeking
the attention of?
I mean, Dennis, has the U.S. foreign policy towards Liberia has not changed under Weah. It just has not. The U.S. government does not change its foreign policy to Liberia based on Liberia lobbying the U.S. government. The U.S. government sets its foreign policy towards Liberia based on what they want, not what we want. No amount of lobbying is going to change that. There's a lot of things George Weah is doing wrong. As far as they're concerned, they can put a 5-year-old child in the seat of the presidency in Liberia. It will make no difference to them. The objective of countries is to seek their own interests. So I don't really you know, Mr. Sharif, with all due respect, I don't see what he's supposed to do to change U.S. foreign policy. It has not changed towards
Well,
Liberia
I'm not
since the Salif
suggesting that,
administration.
Loco.
It has not changed. It has been constant. I'm a policy person. I work in this country. You're a policy professional. You know that.
Yeah, I do. I'm not suggesting that U.S. foreign policy has changed. In fact, in the beginning, I stated that the U.S. foreign policy is anchored on national strategic objectives.
Of the Americans.
Of the Americans.
Yes.
It's based on these, and every country should have your own strategic objective.
Yes.
Your foreign policy ought to be anchored on your domestic policy. What is it that you want for your people? What is good for your country? It is based on that, then you project and interrelate with other nations, right? United States has its, and it hasn't changed. They look at your usefulness to them. You know, how strategic are you to them? If you don't, you're not as strategic, then they're not going to proactively even entertain your excesses, right? So if they don't have anything that attracts them, and then you're doing all the bad things in the world, they ignore you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't hope to rehash this argument, but let's read from Sam Wallo. He said President Salif failed by all accounts after 12 years, given the level of worldwide support she received internationally. No other Liberian president has ever experienced that level of support. Mr. Kuni, is this a justification for whatever challenges Mr. Weah may be having?
No, it's not a justification, but what is stunning is the pretense that sometimes when we discuss this issue, they want people to believe that, you know, these very important national issues we are discussing are the product of the Weah administration. They don't even like to trace the history. Once you trace the history, you struck a nerve. You understand? We're talking about Liberian here. During the Salif administration, there were reports that the Salif administration may have expended about $263 million. That information was given by members of our own party. So sometimes we need to trace the history of the issue we face as a nation. And then we say, what can we do now to face that issue? But some people pretend that, look, Liberia, everything wrong in Liberia started when Weah got elected. And this sometimes create a partisan discussion.
So I want to come in. Issues. Thank you, Mr. Cooney. Dennis, can you correct the you know, let's fact check what the question you read. That is incorrect and inaccurate. It's not true. So you asking Mr. Cooney to respond to something that isn't true. The premise of the person's comment is false. And this is not difficult to find out. The president that received the most financial support from the United States government in history is Samuel Doe. That's a fact. That hasn't changed. So when someone writes something that's not accurate, we should address it before we answer or respond.
That is correct. Samuel Doe received the highest U.S. aid.
But what is correct is that no Liberian person had an international engagement.
She received support, but Samuel Doe did not go to the G7.
Samuel Doe did not attend the G20.
I think the viewer was probably making reference to direct foreign
do not support.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what they're saying, what you're translating. I'm going off of what you read and what the person wrote.
Yeah. No,
so we can change the meaning if we like, but it's very clear he wrote in no uncertain terms. Yeah, I just want to correct that information. Now, if the person wants to write and correct and say, "Oh, you know, I misspoke. That's not what I meant." Great. But what was written is what I'm responding to. What was written is not true.
Yeah, you are right. I think in Africa at that time, I think Doe received the highest U.S.
No other president even comes close.
Yeah, goodwill. President Sirleaf received, you know, seemingly a lot of international goodwill, and that some of it, most of it from her own personal wit and traits and her experience working overseas, and some of the strategies her government employed to bring a positive attention to the country. Because let's be honest, where President Sirleaf took Liberia from, it was a very difficult place, and to where she left and handed over to President Weah. And so the goodwill she received, international attention, foreign direct investment, people coming to Liberia, you know, really bringing the country's image back. I think that can be a perception that people can easily translate into you know, monetary support or the largest financial support to Liberia.
In fact, I think on this point, that is part of the reason I'm a little reluctant. I don't agree with people who sometimes argue that we need people with connection in DC. We need people with connection with international organizations because you know what? In our recent history, the two most popular Liberians who have taken the hand of the presidency, that's President Salih and Weah. And under Salih, there were lots of international goodwill. I agree. She did what? She took Liberia from probably a trash and carry her up there. But how much did it translate in terms of upliftment or ordinary people's lives?
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of that, I think the government took her attention from the money that was flowing in the country and allowed donors to do anything they wanted to do with that money in Liberia. And we have the statistics, but we are still living in a poor room environment. We moved to President Weah, who by and far, compared to Salih, had global iconic status in terms of being known around the world. And nothing has happened in the administration. So what it tells me is we actually need to focus on Liberians who have their heart in Liberia, who understand Liberia, not just celebrate it. Because celebrity will always be celebrated. You know.
Thank you. I hope you are not putting in a plug for someone.
I know where you going.
And
No,
why
I'm
not?
not. No, Dennis, I'm saying
I know where you
true
going.
things.
Mr. Cooney been plugging.
We're
We are
really down the
on.
road.
I think, look, I told you the story before. I was in East
Hold on, Mr.
No, but
Gongo,
let me tell
because
you this.
I
I
don't want
was in
Mr. Cooney
East
to
in
bring about his one
1999,
wrong period.
and I went to a little village called Zumalai. I mean, a militia base. You know, when I said, and I was the only black person in my group, working group that time in Zumalai, and they introduced us, and the guys came and said, "Which country are you from?" And I said, "Liberia." And all these little kids say, Joshua. You know, that's it. This guy is the only Liberian so known to have become president of Liberia. And under his regime, Liberia is failing during peacetime.
You going that month?
All right. Thank you. Let's go to our last issue because time is fast spent, and that is the dual citizenship bill, as it is called. The Senate and the House, they passed a bill, and it's on its way to President Weah's desk. That bill, what it does is it removes the restrictions that were in the Alien and Nationality law that forbid Liberians that once you take the citizenship of another country, you are no longer a Liberian. Now, so those ineligibilities have been removed, but what is added now in the bill is certain offices will be restricted. For instance, if you are a dual citizen or if you have citizenship of another country, even though you are a natural born Liberian, yes, you can be Liberian, but you are not eligible to any elected position in the country. You cannot be appointed to be a defense minister, to be finance minister, and bank governor. I have not really laid hands on the bill itself because it's not been in the print version yet. But this is what we are hearing from Monrovia. There are many arguments to this, and I was privileged to host yesterday the president of the All Liberian Conference on Dual Citizenship. And many are saying this is a violation of the Constitution. Some say, hey, let's take baby steps one at a time. There is no country except Israel that gives dual citizenship without restrictions. So let's take that and work on it as we go. Let me start with Mr. Gonglo here. Mr. Gonglo, what's your take on this whole dual citizenship issue and the bill that's newly being passed?
Well, personally, I would say, you know, Liberia is a very unique country in a sense. We are the only country so far that I know of. Maybe Kyle, who is a renowned student of history, might correct me on this. I think Liberia is the only country in the world that to get citizenship, you have to be black or belong to the black race. Others have argued that that clause is racist. But one can understand the historical perspective why Liberia put that in the Constitution of the First Republic. In fact, which was written by Simon Greenleaf, an American Attorney General, basically. So if you take that into account, I think the uniqueness of Liberian history, because we're established to give freedom to Black people. Why institute restriction? We should just remove that and say, look at our history. We are the only country that welcome Black people. Why put restriction on our own citizens who were born and some of them left the country because of other reasons? Why not we just remove that clause that will blacken them and say, look, you are free to come, free to live here. Because if our institutional of governance are strong and working, that immigration, the Ministry of Justice, our court systems are working, anybody who violates law will be held accountable. You're not going to run to America or Great Britain or any Western capital or even Ghana for cover. Mind you, there are many Liberians who are citizens in Ghana, in South Africa, and Nigeria. Okay? And they are living in Liberia today. So sometimes we can focus on Western country, but there are many Liberians right there in Guinea, Sierra Leone who are citizens as well because of the war. So
Yeah.
Mr. Gonglo, you brought about this
restriction. And I think we should just remove that because we are a unique Black country.
Mr. Gonglo, you brought about this thing you just mentioned, so I want to ask about this whole idea of Negro descent. How do you think in Liberia we're going to tell if somebody is of Negro descent or not?
Well, I think the Constitution defines it.
How can we tell that Mr. XYZ is of Negro descent or not? How do we know? Do you know?
Well, the whole question of the definition of Negro, it probably differs from country to country.
Let's say Black, but how can we tell that this person is Black or white?
We use the same definition the United States uses.
The same definition.
In the United States, I don't know about the laws, but during the
we use the same definition the United States uses.
No, because during the census, they ask you whatever race you say you are is what is.
Yes, but there's a definition of being what they considered Negro or originally said person of color.
Right.
Basically, if you are 1/8 African,
right,
you're a Negro. So I always laugh at some of my Lebanese friends and other Arabs, and I say, do a DNA test. You're probably 25% or 20% Black. You sitting out here talking about but I mean, all jokes aside, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is something that I've done a lot of research into. Some people physically look white.
Yeah. So I'm saying, is it by looking at
they're considered Negroes because they have African heritage?
Yes.
Right. So in Liberia, are we going to use machines or we're going to look at people and tell?
We never
use it. Basically a person's declaration.
If that's removed from the Constitution, I don't know if it has, but that would be moot because it has been there all these decades and decades.
No, I understand that. I'm just wondering how.
We haven't made that determination. And I think it was just historically context-based as well. And like Carl said, that the definition has also evolved even here in the United States. So there's
it actually hasn't evolved here at all. Actually, it hasn't.
Well, okay, so I'll leave the history.
I mean, you still have people who are quadroons that are classified as Black in this country.
I agree that there are you can't just physically look at somebody and say you're a Negro, you're white. That's okay.
And I think it's based on the concept. Liberia exists as a response to white supremacy. It exists as a response to anti-African hatred and marginalization. So Liberia exists for the very purpose of that clause in the Constitution. The same reason Israel exists because of the persecution of Jews. No one says that the Jewish state is no longer necessary. Though Jews are wealthy and have somehow transcended persecution, have become themselves oppressors in the world, no one says that Israel is no longer necessary. Africans are still treated as subhumans by the world power. Their lives are expendable. Their children, our children, are dying in groves for the purpose of extracting resources for the benefit of others. Look at what's happening in Congo. And we sit here and say that this is no longer necessary. African people no longer need an asylum, a place, a safe haven, but Jews do.
Thank you. Let's come back to dual citizenship. And Carl, what's your take on this new bill that's been passed?
It was not necessary. The Supreme Court already ruled that the Citizenship and Nationalization Act, that aspect of it was unconstitutional. And it is not a dual citizenship bill. It is an
dual citizenship.
It's an anti-diaspora bill.
Yeah.
It's a selfish, attempt at inadequate people to protect their jobs from people who may be more qualified than themselves. It is an attempt to continue the incompetence and ineptitude unchecked and unchallenged by people who would potentially be more qualified. It is an attempt for them to hold on to the power that they are mismanaging and don't deserve to hold. It is unconstitutional. It goes against the principle of what the very purpose of citizenship is. Article 8 of the Constitution is clear. The Republic shall direct its policy towards ensuring for all citizens without discrimination opportunities for employment and livelihood under just and humane conditions. Listen, the Constitution does not accept second-class citizenship. It is a contradiction. It contravenes the entire spirit of the Constitution to introduce a second class of Liberian citizens. And the sick part about this is Liberians don't understand when they talk about dual citizenship, it has really to do with immigrants, not people born in the country. Nobody considers their birthright citizens to be dual citizens. Not really. I mean, the United States is an immigrant country. They could care less if 10 other countries consider their citizens to be citizens of those countries. All the US cares about is what their laws say as citizens. That's how Liberia used to be until the 70s, when our people started getting uncomfortable with this huge influx of immigrants who were Muslim. So they jump out, oh, you know what? In order to be Liberian, your two parents have to be Liberian. Why? They had xenophobia against this huge influx of Muslim citizens. And so now we've got xenophobia against people who were educated in world-class universities, who had exposure that didn't have. So there's this jealousy aspect of it, thinking somebody coming back to come take their jobs from them. And so we're gonna write it into law. We're gonna protect our incompetence in law. Mind you, all of the countries in the world that are advanced, the United States, this is where we sit. There's huge brain drain. Liberia is probably the #2 country in the world when it comes to brain drain, next to Afghanistan. We have incredible capital flight. Most countries understand that the only way for the country to advance is to use its citizens and to also attract even foreign citizens. America goes out of its way to make policy for competent people that live abroad in other countries to come and be US citizens. People who are not even born in the United States. They're in Asia, they're scouting for people to come and help to grow the country. We sitting on this suffering for human capital, and the few selfish people who want to hold on to power doing everything they can to prevent their own birthright citizens from returning. This is absurd. And if you do this, look, I don't care how many citizenships you acquire in the world, you can never erase your birthright citizenship. The United States does not erase anyone's birthright. You cannot do that. If John Sakawolo goes and becomes a citizen of Germany, but he was born in let's say Ganta Methodist Hospital, he can never change that. He can never be a birthright citizen of any country that he acquires citizenship in. This law is mean-spirited. The law is mean-spirited. It is unconstitutional. And it is intended to destroy potential, not destroy, but prevent and circumvent potential citizens who have skills and talents to contribute to the advancement of the state from coming to advance the state.
Let me stop you there, Cole. I will come back to you. Let me go to Mr. Cooney. Mr. Cooney has has been fighting for this dual citizenship bill, as we call it, and he wanted no restrictions. But Mr. Kuni, this is what we got. What's your take? Is this something that you are happy with, or do you see that it is unconstitutional, as a call is saying? You are muted, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. This is one of the most touching issues that I have participated in my community civil engagement. I agree with most of the things that Cole said. I got a little disagreement, but I agree with most of the things that she said. My position on the dual citizenship thing is that the birthright citizenship of Liberians should not be negotiated. That has been our advocacy. That has been our advocacy. But what we got in this bill is not what we advocated for. Again, sometimes Cole is our history person here. Maybe she will help us. I sometimes like to look at the history of these things. This law that we're talking about came into being, I think, in the 70s, 1973, 1974, when even at that time, Liberians were not traveling. We don't have a huge number of Liberians leaving Liberia at that time. So I'm asking myself, what were the motivation? What motivated the legislature of that time to make that kind of alien and nationality law?
Xenophobia, I already answered the question.
That lay out all of these steps. That lay out all of these steps through which a natural born Liberian citizen could lose his citizenship. I think they lay out 4 potential steps. So the bill falls short of what we advocated for. My general position is that it is a foundation, and whatever any advocacy can do, whatever any group can do to chip away and carry us to that position of no restriction, I support that effort. I support that effort. But what was passed is not what we advocated for. But I recognize that as the first step in the door, because the law did
step backwards.
The law, mind you, the law did. The fact that you could lose your Liberian citizenship.
The Supreme Court already ruled there was no reason for them to do anything at all. What they're doing now is they are adding up, making things worse than they were before.
Oh, let me tell you, the Supreme Court that ruled, first of all, the Supreme Court ruled on the issue of due process. That was the ruling the Supreme Court made. The Supreme Court did not touch the reasons, all of the reasons listed by the Act for one to lose their citizenship. They ruled on due process and kept all of those reasons in place. And to test the fact that the Supreme Court actually ruled only on due process, guess what? The main person, the party that took the case to the Supreme Court, on whose complaint the court made a ruling, when Tish went to admit himself, when he applied to the Liberian Bar Association, the Supreme Court ruling was that nobody can take away your citizenship until you receive due process.
Did you read the full ruling by the Supreme Court?
I read the full ruling.
Then you would know that they did address the constitutionality question.
The constitutional question they addressed was the automatic loss of citizenship without due process. They said that was unconstitutional, which was in the law. So, but what I'm telling you now, the very Teach went to the Supreme Court to apply to be member of the bar. Guess what? The Supreme Court has not admitted the brother. They have not admitted the brother.
But they admit Councillor Kofa and many others who have citizenship in the United States.
They have not given him any reason. He's still practicing law in Liberia.
We got lawmakers that hold U.S. passports all over the place. The same hypocrites that signed this thing.
So that tells you.
I grew up in the country. I saw all of this. All of them got U.S. passport. Let them move from here.
You know.
Hold on, okay.
I don't know why she got me this stuff.
We
talk about the Supreme Court ruling. They put out ruling. They banned Teach from being member of the bar.
Yeah, that's a different issue.
I was in Liberia too for 7 years working there. And then when this dual citizenship debate came about, what I saw, what I heard shocked me. You know, like what Cole said, this is pure envy, jealousy, discrimination, fear of what nobody knows, right? And this is from very high level people in society,
Yep.
trendsetters who are leading our religious institutions, who are leading our branches of government, who you think are educated and well traveled people. Somebody told me the people said they didn't want stranger. Why you want to be in America, then you want to be here, you want benefit, what, then you can't benefit. Just like
As
that.
if it's
I mean, literally, just like that, right? And this person who said this is somebody whose voice could lead to policy, you know, and they're so passionate about this. When you ask them, there's no policy, substantive policy reasoning behind this discriminatory law. This Liberia has become such a discriminatory society, that I don't know how we can get out of this because it's taking us backward, right?
Right.
No country has been able to successfully advance, industrialize, and get to a certain place, just like without having a strong agricultural base, so too without having a strong citizenship base without human capital. And a lot of that too is diaspora citizenship. We can look at countries, in Asia that have leveraged their diaspora population and then worked along with those in country, those who are back home together in partnership and advance their societies.
exactly.
For us, we simply without any substantive reason to say, well, you want to be in America, your children are there, then you
Mr.
enjoy,
Salif,
you come here and buy land. So it's very sad. So my position here is this is a very, very dangerous bill. I believe it's unconstitutional. It should not stand. I mean, if the president signs this in law, then the president is not an advocate of the dual citizenship position at all, really, because that is just certain matters worse than it is. How, I mean,
Mr. Salif,
imagine asking a Liberian citizen,
Mr. Salif,
yeah,
two reasons I heard for this. Number one, there is no country beside Israel that have dual citizenship without restrictions. That's the one reason they are saying. Number two, according to Mr. Emmanuel Wetti, chairman of the All Liberian Conference on Dual Citizenship, who has been advocating for this for over 10 years now, say he was told for security reason.
yeah. So the security reason argument we've heard, they side, people like Elaine Cochran, they side people, you have dual citizenship you're an American citizen, you come here, you commit crime, and you take our resources, you flee. Or that somebody said to me, even you can be an American citizen, you want to work, say, in the U.S. government, you go through national security check and things like that. They will ask you to relinquish your other citizenship. I haven't seen that. I work, for a U.S. Entity for years. I've seen African American, people from all over Africa who are American citizens who are actually holding serious senior positions in U.S. government. They didn't ask them to do that. They all say national security. In Liberia, we know, though, when we're about to engage in some of our corrupt acts, we'll say for national security reasons. Yeah, we'll say for national security reasons. And
Mr. Gongo, you have the last word on this one.
Yeah, so Dennis, some of the reasons you give, I just love it. Outright love it. Look, listen, when the Liberian government is trying to build a capacity of that security, where do they go? To the American government. Where do they send them to train? In the United States. So the country where you send your people to train, if someone is a citizen there, why you want to even take that privilege from that person? Is it now a win-win situation for you that you can even have such a person that will even relate to their second country better? So for me, I think there is a larger question. Even the reason they gave you, that research shows that only Israel is the only country in the world that gave dual citizenship unrestricted. We are the only country in the world that to become citizen, you have to be black or belong to the black race. Isn't that interesting? Why we can't be like Israel too? Because we are the only country too that decide citizenship on the basis of race. So
exactly. Excellent.
Yeah, I don't really see the reason. I think this is not nothing but a protectionism. People want to protect themselves. People want to protect their inequities, their failures, and mask, so they can continue to be seen as the only shining star on the hill.
Thank
They
you.
don't want competition of ideas. That's what exactly this is about.
Yes.
And I want to end on this, Dennis. Interestingly, the point Mr. Coney made about my friend Teach. Interestingly, Teach used to be my neighbor here in the U.S. in Philadelphia here. It's actually paradoxical that he's a practicing lawyer, because I've seen Teach go to court. He was admitted in the court as an attorney in the Monserrato court. Now, only to go one step above, they are delaying that. So he's actually a practicing lawyer.
Yeah,
you have to be a citizen to practice law. And he's just trying to go one step forward. So I think it's a contradiction.
Yeah, they haven't admitted him to the Supreme Court bar. They allow him to practice somewhere.
But isn't it true that only Liberian citizens can practice law?
It's true. I think there's some confusion there for me as well, because you don't get admitted to the Supreme Court bar until you've practiced law for 5 years under the apprenticeship of someone else, because that's just how it is.
And to do that, you must be a Liberian citizen.
Yeah, so you can't even practice law in the country at all if you're not a citizen.
Yeah. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tough Talking Thursday. Time is fast spent. Let me read some announcement here. We have this Sunday, July 24, we'll be having our virtual Independence Day program. And the orator of this year is Dr. Ibrahim Yain, a Liberian historian. Also, during that program, under the theme, A Home of Glorious Liberty, Hopes, Challenges, and the Future of the Republic, we'll have artist Jesselyn will be performing her new single, Hail Liberia, and poet Biola Nimine, we're going to be reading our Independence Day poem. You don't want to miss it. Talking about dual citizenship, discrimination faced by members of the Fulani community in Liberia, the case of Hassan Jallo. Hassan Jallo is born to Guinean parents in Liberia, but according to him, he's facing discrimination. He's not a citizen, and so he wants to bring his case forward. Join me this Saturday at 1 p.m. for this very important show. Also, at 7 p.m., as we get closer to our Independence Day, we're going to be talking about our founding fathers of Liberia on the Liberia History Channel. Our resident scholar, Carl Fambulet, a student of history and also FOL public policy analyst, is our presenter. I also want to announce that today is the birthday of my firstborn, and we say happy birthday. This was the time I was in community college and doing my paper, and I have no other alternative but to put her on my back. Today, she's
so you can do your work.
Happy birthday, Diane.
She's a grand.
She's absolutely beautiful.
You can look at the dad.
You are a committed father.
So our time is fast spent for questions and comments. Let's go straight into our Tabata session. As we have our viewers, if you want to join the show, I will take 5 callers, at least half a minute each. Please call in. The number is 605-313-6004. The code is 791403#. And this is a conference line. I was looking at, we don't easily look at when you call this number, they say the number you are dialing is outside your plan. You're going to be charged 1 cent per minute. I was able to look at my my bill, and I said there are a lot of charges. Those small, but we are paying for what we are doing here. You just want to put it out there, and so there are people who will call and say, well, they are charging me 1 cent per minute, but I think this is very important. So you can sacrifice the 1 cent. If that is too much, we'll cash out you maybe 20 cents because you're going to be there the average of 20 minutes. Let's go around the room now for our Tabata. And before we do that, we're going to take a very short break. So prepare your Tabata of the week. Tabata meaning nonsense. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show here at Focus on Liberia. We educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. What we do here, you cannot find it anywhere on the planet. I challenge you. Let's go around the room for Tabata. Sometime, almost every week, we have some Tabata going on. Mr. Kuni, what's your Tabata of the week?
Before I give my Tabata call, giving 3 because she hasn't been here in a long time, so she giving 3. But my Tabata of the week, I was reading the newspaper in Liberia, a story about our Nobel laureate Weah. Yes, I think. And she was giving an assessment of situations, conditions in Liberia. And, one of the evidence she was giving as hard time in Liberia is the fact that she saw 2 Liberians that were fighting over $30. And she was presenting that as the evidence of hard time in Liberia. And so, I was thinking of all the things occurring in Liberia, it's the fight over $30, is that what you're going to, cite as an example of, the difficulties, the challenges that go on in Liberia? I thought it was a kind of Tabata for me because there are many other things, that you could have actually highlighted.
Thank you. Mr. Gonglo.
$30. That's why you so commonly among all when we're all cheering.
Thank you. Mr. Gonglo,
Well,
your Tabata of the week.
My Tabata of the week is similar to my Tabata last week. Now, before the Liberian Senate, the George Weah administration that has received the report of the AACC indicting key ministers like the Minister of Agriculture and other senior government official in corruption web and recommended them for prosecution. Instead of the George Weah administration taking on the action to dismiss them or suspend them while they go through investigation or prosecution, he has decided to institute amendment of the act creating the AACC. And the idea is they will give them prosecutorial power, but then they will also restrict them from seeking approval from the president before they prosecute anyone. And they can now be dismissed. So this sounds stupid to me. It doesn't make sense to me, like in your crude language, that here is the entity of government telling you this is what we're doing. We have this. Some of your people are corrupt. They are stealing the people money. Here is a report. Here is the evidence. Take them to court. And the president says, okay, no. I'm actually going to go reform the law to give you new power so you can prosecute them. Prosecute them now. Why you want to take 6 months to rewrite the law and dismiss me? Because when we rewrite the law, the argument is they're going to dismiss them because it's a new act. So it does not make sense to me. And that's what Weah is doing now.
Thank you. Carl? Couldn't say you want to give 3, but we
No, I will give 1.
All right.
For me, my greatest Tabata is the audacity of the Liberian Facebook community to try to bully our former Miss Liberia, Woki Dolo, who won the crown in 2017. It's supposed to be an annual pageant. An annual pageant, meaning every single year. And most of the people out there that are commenting and insulting this young woman don't even understand the situation. They just, as soon as they see something on Facebook, they just jump on the bandwagon. Oh, Henry Costa said the girl not good, so let's go cuss off. I mean, what kind of complete buffoonery is that? This young woman won a crown in 2017 for an annual pageant. 2018, there was no pageant for her to turn over the crown to. So what does she do? She returns the crown and starts her own pageant because the Ministry of Information, Culture, and Tourism didn't do what it was supposed to do, which is to ensure that there's a Miss Liberia pageant every year. This girl takes it upon herself and starts her own pageant so that young women can have an opportunity to celebrate themselves and present their talents to the country. She calls it Miss Earth Liberia. We've seen this for, I think, 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah.
She did this without the help of government, but with the support of President Weah, who, I was very impressed that he said, you know what, this is a great initiative. I am going to take pictures with you, and this is, encourage her to do things, positive things. Now you've got a group of people who've obtained the opportunity after 5 years. They work with another now that we have not been at war. The country is not in this under duress. That normal days we ain't so 5 years they ain't have pageant. The girl been doing her pageant. Then they want to come and compel her to participate in the pageant. She must come and turn over a crown. The crown is ceremonial. It's not actually an actual thing that she needs to give back, because the thing that they gave her 5 years ago was what? Nothing. It was just symbolic. So they now want her to come and symbolically turn over a crown in a pageant that essentially abandoned her after she won. But grown men, rusted men that can born this young woman on Facebook bullying her on nonsense. So for me, that's a Tabata. Y'all leave these young women alone with your foul mouths and your foul language and your misogyny. Y'all take your mouth them from on these young women. They have suffered enough under your tyranny. They have suffered enough. If you cannot protect these young women, do not add to their persecution. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Salif.
Well, I don't know. It's a Tabata of sort. I don't want to know if it's nonsense, but it just didn't make sense to me. So there's a Facebook account on Facebook, obviously, that has been attributed to the Minister of Finance. So that these Prescott Paul, so that these quotes and comments about government, we are fixing Liberia and every day, and people just call the finance minister by name when they see the post, and they say, "Oh, you're doing this, you're not doing this, you're not doing that." So there's this one post, I think it was today or yesterday, I saw. He said that I don't want to misquote, but it sounded like the inflation numbers in Liberia are better than the U.S. inflation rate or global rate. And the implication then, based on the post, is that the Liberian economy is doing better. We are fixing Liberia, And I don't know. I'm not a minister of finance or in government, but in Liberian economy, our people are telling us every day that the economy is a challenge for them. That things that it can be better than the U.S. economy. Certainly, it can be better than a lot of the other, global economies that we see are doing way, way better than ours. So when people are in authority, I think sometimes they make statements. It can almost be like a mockery to the people, and poor people. So,
thank you. Thank you. My Tabata of the week comes from the Unity Party. I read this headline: Unity Party members decry exorbitant fees being charged to contest primaries ahead of 2023 elections. So Unity Party, to be standard bearer, you have to pay $7,500. I mean, it's just through the roof. I'm like, and this is US dollar in an economy where, and the numbers just go through the roof. Vice presidential candidate, I think chairman 2005, you want to contest for president, the Senate and all that. And it's just all money, 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 money. I believe that's complete Tabata. At this time, we're going to take 2 calls here that are on the line quickly. And gentlemen, 1 minute each. The first is Elvis Presley. Elvis has repeatedly said that Tough Talking Thursday is his favorite show. Elvis, welcome to your favorite show.
Thank you, Mr. John. Thank you for hosting my favorite show. Well, quickly, I just want to say on the issue of dual citizenship, I think when it comes to people running for public office, they should have some kind of residency clause. They shouldn't restrict them from running, but they should have some kind of residency clause, maybe a 5-year.
Exactly.
Where you have to show some level of commitment to the country before you can run for that that office. But besides that, I think the bill is pretty,
Evans, that's a change of mind. When did that happen?
No, I I was talking about the office because I think people really want to serve their communities. But in terms of the defense and the finance minister, I think that's a good idea. You know, I think even in America, you can be a foreign citizen if a president is looking at you as a potential person for the defense ministry or whatever in America. More than likely, he's probably going to pick somebody who's born, you know, in the United States when it goes through the process.
Right.
Colin Powell wasn't born here; he was a dual citizen.
Say that again.
Colin Powell was not born in the United States, and he was a dual citizen.
He was I think he was going like Panama or Guam or somewhere overseas. Right?
He's Jamaican. He was Jamaican. He was a proud Jamaican citizen, a proud American citizen. He didn't. It's not an issue. America doesn't care about that. They only care about what they consider to be their citizen.
I mean, they consider what they can do. No country governed by other countries' laws.
Yeah, Colin Powell went up through the ranks of the military. He was never told to renounce his Jamaican citizenship. Right. He just took an oath of loyalty to the United States. That's all. Nobody has time for that.
Go ahead, or Evans conclude.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. But I want to get the line quickly because I don't want to take much time.
Thank you. Let me, our friend Desmond Tutu Finlay is joining us from Australia. Desmond, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I really didn't call for this dual citizenship, but I just want to clarify something. As far as the U.S., I was in the Army, and when I joined the Army, they didn't ask me no questions about dual citizenship until I went to get my security clearance. So while getting my security clearance, I was told to write, I did it with a Nigerian friend of mine who was in a unit. I was told to write a letter pledging an oath of allegiance, a letter in my own handwriting, and sign, and turn over my Liberian passport. That's when I did that, when I went for my security clearance. So I don't know, but most people I know I did that. I had to write a letter and turn over my Liberian passport.
Yep, it's an oath of allegiance. Yep, but you don't renounce your Liberian citizenship, right? You just an oath of allegiance to the U.S., correct?
I'm telling you what I did, Corey.
I'm asking you to clarify. Did you hear what I asked you?
The letter I did, oath that I wrote, I pledged allegiance. I didn't hear you, sorry. What I wrote was simple. I pledged allegiance to the United States of America and America only. And I signed it.
Yep.
When I went to get my security clearance, I joined the Army. I was in the Army for 2 years. I never got that question until I went for my clearance. That's when I got that question and I had that letter and signed it. I was in Japan at the time. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So go ahead for what you call for. You said that was not what you called.
The main thing I call about is Mr. Gongo spoke earlier about people, having the country at heart. Like, can somebody quantify? I hear this statement all the time. Have the country at heart. Can Mr. Gongo quantify that phrase for me, please? In simple numbers, what does it mean to have the country at heart?
And Mr. Gonglo, let me add to that. Can anyone have the country at foot?
No, I don't know the gentleman name. What is his name again?
Georgia. No, nobody have Liberia have more than Georgia. Look at where we are.
No. I think I don't recall.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Finlay.
You want me to make a comment on that?
Yeah.
I don't recall saying that on the show.
Yeah, I don't remember too.
What I do recall saying was that I'm not a big fan of people who go for celebrity presidents. We have Zelle, we have Weah, and we see where Liberia is. We're going nowhere. So we need to take people who live in Liberia, people who actually know the people who experience the situation.
Right. Yeah, that's what I said.
That is what I said. I'm not into that country I had thing. The boy love the country or the woman love the country. I'm not into that thing.
Thank you.
I want to clarify. I want to correct something I said. I just got a text from someone who just said that Colin Powell was a Jamaican citizen by his parents, not by birth. So he was a dual citizen, but his parents were citizens of Jamaica at the time he was born. And Jamaicans do not. The Jamaicans basically claim their citizens, the children of their citizens as citizens. So I want to correct that.
Yeah, what are you saying? You're saying so Colin Powell was born in the United States? Or?
Yes, he was born on U.S. soil, but he was a Jamaican citizen through his parents who were Jamaican citizens at the time of his birth. So that's how Jamaica, if you're a Jamaican, if you're a citizen of Jamaica, you have a child, that child is an automatic citizen of Jamaica.
It's the same with many countries, even like
you.
So the other thing I want to say here really quickly to the last caller, which I appreciate him calling.
hold on, Carl. You will come in. I just want to say that if you are watching us on the big screen, please send us your photo. There's one person watching on the big screen, and here is the photo watching FOL on the big screen. And
shout out to my cousin, my nephew, Anthony Diggs, who sent that picture in.
Thank you. Go ahead, and we have 2 minutes to end the show. Go ahead, Carl.
So here's the deal. When you take office, the things that the dual citizenship law is restricting, nobody gets off an airplane and appoints himself representative or appoints himself minister of finance. You have to be vetted. The president appoints you minister, and the Senate has to confirm you. So, and if you run for representative, the citizens have to elect you. So this idea that there's going to be these invaders that are going to come and just take these offices is absurd. The second point I want to make to the last caller, who clarified a lot of things, when you take an oath, when you take office, any office, you must take an oath of loyalty. That's how countries handle these issues, not by writing discriminatory policies and laws, but by saying, if we are now going to elect you or appoint you into a position that we think is critical to national security and the interests of our country, you must take an oath, which already exists in Liberia. You must take an oath to the Constitution. And so that is what you're really taking an oath to. The Constitution of the United States, if you're doing it here, the Constitution of Liberia, if you're doing it there.
All right. Thank you. There are people, and I don't know this. Achimo Frederick said Bill Clinton, Secretary of State, was born in Europe. I don't know if that's who that is. And,
Madeleine Albright.
Madeleine Albright.
Madeleine Albright, yes.
Albright was born. And the United States, I did a whole video compilation of all the representatives and senators and government officials in the United States who, at the time that I did it, were currently in office that were dual citizens. The U.S. is silent on dual citizenship because it doesn't care if France thinks you're also a citizen.
Outside the United States, Dr. Kinsley.
But if you're going to take these positions, when you become elected, you must take an oath. And that is really all that needs to happen in Liberia.
Mm-hmm. Right. And Abraham and Carl has already corrected herself here with the birthplace of Colin Powell. All right. So thank you so much for joining us. Sorry we couldn't read the comments. Let's go around the room for your closing comments as we hit the 2 hours mark. Let me start with Mr. Salif.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dennis, and to all the viewers for your comments and your calls. And, yet another very good spirited discussion here. In terms of the lobbying, foreign policy, and diplomatic relations, I just, want to say that every country nowadays, especially in this globalized world, right, your foreign policy efforts have to be anchored on your domestic policy, your domestic needs. If you have a good national strategic reason and you identify your partners, you craft that into your foreign policy and be very visible and aggressive. You do the right things at home, people will come crawling to you. To take poor people's resources and throw at already successful rich people in a foreign capital for work that deliverable that we don't see, and for no reason, I think it's really a manifestation of misrule that gets people angry. So that is a very sad thing in terms of just what we've seen in this administration and even in the Salif administration as well.
Thank you. Call your final comments, madam.
Yeah, every country, the number one asset of any country is human capital. We have suffered tremendously from human capital flights, what they call brain drain. Many young, innovative citizens that are within the prime of their lives are living in other countries, advancing the cause of foreign nations. Government policy, if they're serious and they understand their purpose, should be to bring these innovative minds back, to partner with the innovative minds that are already on the ground to advance the cause of the Liberian people. writing policy in place that not only encourages brain drain, but makes it irreversible is just backward. And we need to, if the legislatures, if the Liberian people want to move forward, we're going to need all hands on deck.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be restricting people. We should be looking for more citizens, more innovation. This is what grows a country's economy. This is what raises standards for people. Not saying, no, we're going to close the door and only we're going to sit here and suffer by ourselves. I mean, this is absurd. I appeal to the legislatures and the citizens who elect them to think about the impact rejecting your fellow citizens will have on the future of yourselves and our country.
Thank you. I'm just taking two Liberians, both born in, say, Grand Gila County. One is a U.S. citizen who went to University of Massachusetts, and the other one, another Liberian citizen who went to Thomas Fowler University. And you are telling me the guy from Thomas Fowler University, because he stayed there, he didn't run away from the war, he can be finance minister, and the guy from UMass can be. I reject that. We are all Liberians.
That's
Mr.
right.
Kuni, your closing comments.
Me?
Yes, sir.
As I indicated, I'm not really a big fan of LABE. I think LABE should be a reflection of our achievement. I think that will go a long way. I think with regard to this government, we should do a good job to highlight things that we're doing, the road construction that is going on in the country, the construction of hospitals in the country, and let us even promote legislation that being passed. Look, we've passed the Land Act, we've passed the Fiscal Decentralization Act that we, potentially share revenue between the regions and the government. These are all important things that we're doing, but many Liberians don't know these things. And I think when we begin to highlight things that we're doing, at the same time minimizing things that gave us bad publicity, I think that is a good way to go. That's the mix that I want to see. Let's minimize the thing that gave us, because lobbying is PR, really. That's why it is. It's public relations. So if we minimize the things that give us bad press and highlight the things that give us
like cleaning the trash.
like cleaning the city, And for example, I'm excited that in the recast budget there is additional fund to expand electricity to the people of Liberia. Those are things that we need to highlight. I want to believe those things will serve us, and I also believe there are individual Liberians and there are Liberian organizations that are better situated that can create some of these access that we need, whether it is to U.S. legislators or policymakers. I truly believe that there are Liberians that can equally play that role and even play it better, because I've been there, I've done that, I've experienced that, I've seen the effect of that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And take, for instance, focus on Liberia, where we have the literary hour, the
Exactly.
history channel, we have the FOL marketplace, we have all these shows, the noonday that talk about women issues. So you can easily refer Pelosi to watch Focus on Liberia Tough Talking Thursday to see what's going on, instead of paying zillions of dollars to, someone in Liberia we call it Peking. Can you imagine that? Mr. Gonglo.
All right, thank you. I would say it has been a good discussion, and I'm kind of excited to have shared this forum with my colleagues. But my parting comment would basically be on three issues. The first one I want to address is a lobbying issue. Like I said earlier, President Weah or the president before him, the way you lobby is the way you treat your citizens,
Yeah.
the way you manage your government. That's your lobbying power there. All over the world, countries are managed by human beings. Human beings want to be identified with success story. Like people say, success have many fathers, brothers, and sisters. If you are successful, your family line will increase. If you are not successful, it will shrink. That's just a fact of life. Who run and manage your government properly, and lobbyists countries will come to you to be part of your success story, President Weah. Don't spend $900,000. Okay? And the other issue on the dual citizenship thing, I would say, I listened to the Wetty show yesterday. I listened to your show, Dennis. I was disappointed that he actually kind of tried to pacify the situation to say, we're not happy, but we can just start with it. I would say, let's wait when the president signed that law into bill. Let's have lawyers. If they find any provisions of that bill that contradict the Constitution, they should go to the Supreme Court for interpretation. That's part of our democracy. We should not relent to say, well, because the Senate or the legislature has acted, it's a baby step. Let's wait for the next step. Let's hire lawyers. Let them read the bill. If there is anything that wrong, contrary to the Constitution, because that's what the Constitution says. Anything that is contrary to the Constitution is not involved. So let's go to the Supreme Court. We should not relent on that. And I will end on the $30,000 debate that is not going to end. I will call on President Weah. Issue an executive order. The executive controls the budget. Publish the salary of the legislature. Publish your salary. Publish the salary of your ministers, your deputy ministers, your assistant minister, to end the whole debate. Or the man working in government, he worked to this. Publish it, President Weah. That's another way you can show to the Western country that you are managing your tax dollar well, and you can go there to beg for the tax dollar. Okay, I will end on that.
On that note, I want to thank you all very much for being part of the show tonight. I'm very proud of this panel. That's why I call it the best panel on internet Liberian diaspora television. Right? So we encourage you, our viewers, also. Thank you for watching, and also our loyal followers who watch us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and other social media platforms. Until then, we end with our song that says, whether you have double citizen, triple citizen, we are all Liberians. And what should matter most is we should do whatever it takes to make our country the glorious land of liberty. Have a good night, and God bless you.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our